Welcome back to High Gain Guitar Academy. My name is Neil, and today we're going to learn your very first guitar chords. So what is a chord? Usually a chord is classified by several notes played together in unison to create a bigger sound. These sounds generally mean different moods, happy, sad, etc. Now, if you were to pull up a guitar chord chart online, you would find it to be overwhelming. There are so many different kinds of chords. There's one for everything, much like words in the English language. When you dig through the dictionary, you can find lots of really fancy, complicated words, and there's a place for those in the language. There's a right time to use those. Guitar chords can be very similar to words in the dictionary in that sometimes the more simple ones get the message across easier to more people. So while we sometimes will need a complicated, fancy chord, most of the time, the basics will do, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Today's focus is going to be major and minor chords. What does that mean? Those are music words that you may have heard before, but basically, major sounds happy, minor sounds sad. They're the two basic emotions we're going to focus on. So anytime you hear the word major in music, it's implying that it's going to have a happier tone. Minor will be a little bit more of a sad tone. Here's an example. I'm going to play the E major chord followed by the E minor chord. Here's the happier E major. And then here's the sad E minor. You can really hear the difference, and you may have noticed that my fingers didn't have to move too much. Some of these chords are really close together. They don't require drastic changes, which makes them easy to transition between. The first chord we're going to learn is the E major. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take your pointer finger or index finger. We're going to place it on the first fret of the G string. Secondly, we're going to take your ring finger and place it on the 2 of the D string, D as in dog, followed by your middle finger on the 2 of the A, second fret of the A. It's right next to the 2 of the D, so those guys are going to kind of be neighbors. They're living right next to each other. Now, remember, the lower frets are a little bit wider, making a little bit more room to move around. So when you're holding down a fret, you don't have to hold right in the middle. You can be to the side a little bit, just so long as your finger isn't on the fret wire. Since your 2 of the A and 2 of the D are right next to each other, there's plenty of room for both fingers to squeeze in. Now, when we play a chord and you're holding down these individual frets, some of the strings we're still going to play, we're just not holding down any frets. Those are going to remain open. What we want is for all the strings to ring out clearly, even the ones that we're not holding down frets on. To do this, we want to make sure that the fingers that are holding down frets are standing up straight and tall on our fingertips. You don't have to press too hard, but don't press so lightly to where it doesn't make a sound either. To get my fingers to stand up on the tips a bit more, I'm going to move my thumb down to the lower part of the back of the neck. Notice how when I move my thumb to the lower part of the neck, my fingers on the fretboard arch and give a little bit more room to the other strings. Now that we've got all our fingers in place, the next thing to do is strum the strings. Now, not all of the chords will use all of the strings. In this case, we do though. E major and E minor will both use all of the strings, making it a super easy chord to learn. So all you gotta do is take your pick and let's do a downward strum across all of the strings. Sounds pretty great. Now, if the notes aren't sounding right as you're playing it, best thing to do is take it one at a time and do process of elimination. So let's do this again, but instead of strumming through all of the strings, pick them one at a time until you find the one that doesn't sound right, and then we'll make adjustments. If everything sounds nice and clear, then you've completed your mission and we have an E major chord. If it's still not sounding right, let's take a look at what kind of adjustments we can make to reach our goal. Here's the checklist. First of all, check to make sure your fingers are on the correctly numbered frets on the correct strings. Secondly, make sure that your fingers are standing up straight on their fingertips and not touching any of the other strings. Third, make sure you're holding your pick with the pointy end facing your strings and strum through clearly. If you're not getting any sound out of a string, that might mean because you're either not pressing hard enough or you're too close to the fret wire. Make your adjustments, pause the video if you need to, and once you start getting the sounds come out that you want, come back and we'll continue. It's not easy at first. It takes a little while to master this. If I were to sit down at a piano and hit a key with my pointer finger, it will sound exactly the same as if I hit it with my thumb or my foot. It doesn't matter. Piano keys will always sound the same. Guitar is a little bit pickier. See what I did there? You really have to hold the strings just right in order for them to make the right sound. But guitar is super cool, and it's super worth it when you accomplish this, right? So keep at it. It will come. All right, guys, we've talked about E major. Now let's talk about E minor. So remember, minor means sad. And to accomplish the sad version of the same chord, all we have to do is remove one of our fingers. So in this case, I'm holding down the E major chord. I'm going to remove my pointer finger from the G string. So now the G will remain open and no frets are being held down. So once again, pretty easy to hear the difference between the major and minor, and also pretty easy to transition between the two. Here's the major, here's the minor. It should feel pretty good at this point. You're making sounds that sound musical. It sounds like you're playing guitar. I know it's not easy, but you gotta practice on this probably every day. At first, your fingers are gonna hurt. They're gonna get a little tired, maybe a little bit sore, but trust me, after a while, you're gonna be running laps around this guitar. It really just comes down to how much time, effort, and love you wanna put into learning an instrument. Believe me, if I could wave my magic wand and make you a good guitar player, I would, but let's move on to the A chord, A major and A minor, the happy sounding A and the sad sounding A. Now this one's gonna be a little bit different shaped than the E chord, so let's get started. I'm gonna start out with my pointer finger on the 2 of the D string, D as in dog. Then we're gonna go to the middle finger on the 2 of the G string, followed by my ring finger on the 2 of the B string. Notice they're all in a row, 2, 2, 2. Now how are we gonna fit them in there? Like I said, the bigger frets have a lot of room. So my pointer's gonna be a little further back, my middle going right next to it, and the ring finger is going to be a little bit more forward. Everybody can fit in there, and I've got pretty big hands, so if I can do it, surely you guys can too. Once again, we're going to place your thumb a little bit on the back of the neck to try and arch your fingers up onto your fingertips so they're not touching any other strings. Now, as I mentioned before, not every chord uses all the strings. In fact, the A major chord, you're only going to use 5 of the 6 strings. We're going to start from the 2nd string, the A string, and strum all the way through to the smallest. Again, if it's not sounding right, do them one at a time so you find the bad guy. And there you have it, folks, A major. Now, the A minor is the exact same shape as E major, just down a string. Sometimes you get a 2-for-1 shape. So while all the chords we're gonna learn, A through G, have a bunch of different shapes, sometimes you get off the hook easy. So like I said, the A minor is the same shape as the E major, just down a string. So here's what we're gonna do. Pointer finger on the 1 of the B string, ring finger on the 2 of the G string, middle finger on the 2 of the D string. Once again, make sure your thumb is sort of on the back of the neck, giving you a little bit of arch over the other strings. And again, we're going to strum from the 2nd string, the A string, all the way down. Let's pick them one at a time just to make sure everything sounds good. If you need to pause it and practice on your own to make it sound right and come back to this, that's totally fine. In fact, that's pretty normal, guys. It takes a little time to get this down. And chords, while a fundamental basic part of playing guitar, they're something that you'll always need to practice. I've been playing guitar forever and I still practice my chords every day. It's just like if you see a professional athlete practicing their basic skills. A basketball player in the NBA still practices their basic dribbling skills. It's just part of it. Picking, strumming, chords, scales, all these basic guitar skills will take you all the way through to an advanced level.